Next step is actually to start adding in our scripting API. So let's just flick over to our here and we'll open up the project. Alrighty. So we've got our bomb object. These are going to be our monsters. And we've got the ability here to actually use Cocos Builder to assign a custom class, which is the way Victor's original tutorial is set up. But we're not setting any custom properties, so let's go ahead and add one. And we'll add in an update script that's going to get run every time the update loop in our game runs. And it will be a string. And the value of our string will be a Lua script that is going to simply print out our game API call to get the position of this actual monster. Self is not some special variable that comes out of Lua. I'm just using that word. You could use whatever you wanted in there. But I'm going to use this concept of where if we're going to call a script, it's going to by default come with the hosted context of whatever it was that script was embedded into. And in this case, self is going to refer to the actual bomb location, which is what we want. Okay, so let's save that. Save those changes that we made. So it's saved, and we'll now publish that into our Xcode project. So if we go back over to Xcode now, I'll just do a clean, make sure we don't have any artifacts there. Now what should happen now is we actually should crash, because our bomb object is going to get a new variable called update script, which it doesn't know how to handle. So let's just see if that's what happens. Yep, okay, so it's not key value compliant for our update script, which is exactly what we expect. Okay, so let's go ahead and teach our bomb how to handle update scripts. In fact, if I look at bomb, it inherits from game object, so I'm going to make all of our game objects able to handle update scripts. I'm just going to add in another property here. Okay, so that should allow us to actually not crash. Okay, so we didn't crash, but we're not doing anything with our script. So let's go into our game here, and it turns out here in this update function is where we're going to get a chance to do something every update. And what we can do is tell our engine that, let's see, what we want to do is we want to run a script, and the script we want to run is going to be the game objects update script, and we want to run it with the host object, which will be our actual game object, the one that had the script embedded inside of it. So that's the method that we're going to have to implement back over in our Lua engine here. And we'll run it with a host, which is going to be a game object. We need to tell Xcode about this new class, which is our game object. Alright, so we're going to have to run our script with our game object. So this is not going to be too completely dissimilar to how we did it in the previous function here, where we're running a file. In this case, we're going to be doing Lua L underscore do string with our Lua state, and the string we're going to run is, it's going to be the script object. But of course, again, we have to use the default C string encoding. But we still haven't dealt with the issue that we need to have our hosted object. We need to tell Lua about that. And also, there's another problem, is that some of our objects are not going to have scripts. So that's going to be nil or empty. So we want to do some checking for that. Now obviously in Objective-C we're allowed to send any selector to nil. So if script is actually nil, then that's going to produce a nil result, which will give us the same as this anyway. So the standard Objective-C idiom, if you're not happen to be used to it, is just to not even bother checking if script is null. You might be tempted to say something like this, but it's just not necessary in Objective-C. Now we need to actually tell Lua about our game object. So in order to do that, we're going to use one of the types of user data. Lua has two types. One is just ordinary user data. There's also light user data, which is effectively an opaque pointer to some data blob that's going to get handed around, but it's never going to get interrogated by Lua. So Lua is just going to use this as a pointer to some data that we can access. And it's going to be light user data in the sense that there's no additional Lua information or bindings or meta programming available for it. So in order to do that, we do a Lua push. Push is how we get anything into Lua, and in this case we want to push light user data into our Lua state of our game object. Okay, fairly simple. Alright, we've got a problem here, which is that we don't know how to push a game object. Light user data is actually expecting a void star. So let's cast that to void star. Okay, so that fixed that problem, but now we have another one, which is that ARC, which is the reference counting implementation that manages our memory, it doesn't know what this game object is doing when we're passing it in via the void star. Is it going to get owned by Lua? In which case we'd want to do some sort of special call. Well, no, it's not. We don't want to change the ownership, so what we're going to do is, in order to leave it the same as what it is just use a bridging cast like that. So we'll just accept that option to push that data in there. Now finally we need to tell Lua that that user data object is that thing we call self. So we're going to do set global Lua state and the C style string self. Note there's no @ symbol in front of that because it's a C string, and what that's going to do is make that little self name that we used in the script refer back to our game object here. But the problem is it will actually run the script but then not know how to implement the call inside of our script here, which is get position. But let's not worry about that for now. Let's just see if it actually runs the script. We should get a bunch of errors out with any sort of luck. Yep, okay, so here we are. It's saying I didn't know what that game was. I couldn't understand how to use get game position. So what we're going to have to do is go ahead and actually implement our API for our game so that it knows how to call get game position.